tonight, could you talk to us a little bit about these deportations we've been hearing about of Haitians? Could you talk to us about that?
Sure, we're seeing in real time the culmination of U.S. interference in the affairs of Haiti. I think it's important to keep in mind when we hear Haiti described as the poorest country in the hemisphere, or it's always a mess, or something like that, that Haiti is in effect not a sovereign, excuse me, nation. It was invaded by the US in the Woodrow Wilson administration. Millions of dollars were stolen from the country. France, in an act of revenge, stole millions of dollars from Haiti for almost 100 years, from the 1820s till 1940s. The US kidnapped President Aristide. Before Aristide, the puppet government of the Duvalier family. And since that time, it's been under UN occupation. The UN even brought cholera to Haiti. Troops from Nepal are responsible, dumped sewage into a river, and thousands of people died there. The so-called core group, US, EU, Canada, United Nations, in effect choose who's going to run the country, and they work with a group of oligarchs who determine what happens there. There have been huge protests in Haiti for the past year. Hundreds of thousands of people, I know most people have never seen this in the corporate media, protesting against their government. Specifically, Venezuela, in the days of Hugo Chavez, helped Haiti and other countries in the region with Petro-Carib funds, which were all stolen. And people have been leaving Haiti, trying to get to the US, trying to get to other countries. Some had, in fact, gone to Latin American countries, to Peru and Chile, to Brazil, to Panama, and are now, and actually it's not new that people, patients are on the border. There have been people waiting near Tijuana for a couple of years. When they changed the policy for asylum seeking, and said that you had to apply outside of the United States, it created this terrible condition for people in Mexico, and people are still trying to get to the US border. It's important to remember that you have, at least technically, the right to seek asylum. And the concern of that I have and many other people have is that these people are being flown back to Haiti. Some of them haven't been in Haiti actually for years, where the situation deteriorates, where the president was recently assassinated. So I think it's important that for Haitians, for other people on the border, all over the world, that we maintain the right for people to seek asylum, to make the asylum request, and that the US, most importantly, stop interfering in the affairs of other countries. That is what drives people here. The coups, the invasions, you know, all the Central Americans on the border, very few of them are from Nicaragua, for example, a left-leaning country where they have a safety net, where the government does its best to help its population. There are very few Nicaraguans trying to enter the United States. So those, I think, are the most important things to know about Haiti at this juncture.
And where has the Biden administration been on this? Didn't someone, is this correct? Didn't someone from the Biden administration say, don't come here?
Yes, that someone was the vice president. Yes, do not come, she said in her clipped little voice. I don't like her, that's why I make fun. But yes, she said the same thing. You know, Biden policy on the border is the same as Trump policy, just as it is in other areas of foreign policy. There really has not been very much change. So the Biden administration wants to keep people out. They've been deporting people. Several thousand people have already been on deportation flights back to Haiti in the last week. And there's something very important. Last week, the US Special Envoy to Haiti resigned, and he resigned. He wrote a scathing letter. It's fairly short, actually. I urge people to Google and find it. He said essentially that he'd been lied to by the administration, that the U.S. is still in the business of picking Haiti's leaders. There's been a process, a civil society process in Haiti, recommending how to move forward with a new president, but the U.S. has ignored it. So in his letter, he basically berated the Biden administration for continuing bad policy and for creating this humanitarian crisis. So I think that is a very big deal. People don't resign on principle very often, unfortunately. So I think that gives you an indication of how bad things are, that a career diplomat would publicly condemn what the Biden administration is doing.
What was his name again, this diplomat?
I'm blanking on his name. I can't remember his name. But if you look it up, it's should I look it up? I know it's so embarrassing. Hold up.
We could look it up later and share also in a follow-up email.
I want to say the man's name. I did read the letter despite my blanking my senior moment, and I'm not really a senior, but Daniel Foote.
Daniel Foote. Okay, thank you.
Foote.
Yes, great.
And he's a career diplomat. This was not his first posting. He's been around a while, but it has to have been pretty bad for him to have been so public in his condemnation of the Biden administration.